Welcome to Paternity Truth. A father's love, a mother's secrets, and two children caught in the middle, who really belongs to whom? Watch as the shocking DNA results turn a family upside down, revealing truths no one was ready for. Don't miss a moment of this emotional roller coaster. Hit subscribe and stay tuned for more jaw-dropping paternity stories. The judge begins the case by introducing the emotional and highly complicated situation between Mr. Benning and Ms. Bodine, immediately setting the tone for a hearing filled with uncertainty, heartbreak, and long-buried tension. As the details unfold, it becomes clear that this moment is the culmination of months, if not years, of internal turmoil for Mr. Benning. He enters the courtroom not simply as a man seeking answers from a DNA test, but as someone whose sense of identity, responsibility, and emotional stability has been shaken by the discovery of his partner's infidelity. For 2 years, he has embraced the role of a father to his daughter Robin, pouring into her the same love, attention, and care he once received from his own mother before her passing. His connection to Robin is rooted in deep personal history, and learning that his girlfriend cheated has threatened to uproot that foundation. Adding to this pain is the uncertainty surrounding his infant son, Jermaine Jr., whose birth he celebrated with joy, pride, and a renewed sense of purpose. The judge acknowledges the weight carried by Mr. Benning, understanding that these accusations and doubts have the power to impact not only the legal definition of paternity but also the emotional bond between a father and the children he has raised. As the hearing begins, the reasons behind Mr. Benning's doubts become clearer: the cheating, the messages from other men claiming to be the father, and the emotional manipulation during arguments all converge into a painful question he never imagined he would have to ask. The judge's introduction highlights the gravity of the moment, emphasizing that the court must confront the delicate intersection of truth, biology, and emotional connection as Mr. Benning seeks clarity not out of anger, but out of a desperate need for reassurance, closure, and the chance to protect the children he loves. Mr. Benning explains that the roots of his desire to have a daughter go far beyond simple preference and are deeply tied to one of the most painful experiences of his life, the loss of his mother when he was just 14 years old. She wasn't only a parent to him but also his closest companion, someone he describes as his best friend, the person he spent nearly every moment with growing up. Losing her so young left a void that shaped the way he viewed family, love, and responsibility. He carried with him a quiet promise that one day, if he ever had a daughter of his own, he would honor his mother's memory by giving that child the same unconditional love, protection, and presence he once received. This wasn't just an idea he thought about casually. It became a defining part of who he was and how he imagined his future. So when Robin was born, it felt to him like a dream fulfilled, a second chance to experience the joy and connection he lost too early. She became the embodiment of that long-held wish, the emotional link between his past and his healing. Every laugh they shared, every playful moment, every time she reached out for him reinforced the sense that this was the bond he had been waiting for. To him, Robin wasn't simply a child he was raising. She symbolized a deeply personal promise he had carried with him for years, a commitment to pour into someone the same warmth and affection that had once shaped him. That is why the doubts about her paternity struck him so deeply. It was not just the fear of losing a title or a role, it was the fear of losing the emotional connection that represented both his love for Robin and his lasting tribute to the mother he adored, making the situation far more painful and complex than a typical paternity dispute. Ms. Bodine openly admits in court that she cheated during the relationship, yet she maintains unwavering confidence that Mr. Benning is the biological father of Robin. Her admission instantly adds emotional weight to the case because it confirms that there was, at least at one point, another possible man involved during the time of conception. Despite this, she insists there is no real doubt in her mind about who fathered the child. The contradiction between her certainty and the circumstances surrounding Robin's birth becomes even more dramatic when she recounts what happened in the hospital. As she was in the middle of labor, vulnerable and experiencing one of the most intense moments of her life, a message came through from another man boldly claiming to be the father and insisting that he should be present. The timing of this message added a layer of chaos, anxiety, and confusion to what should have been a joyful, intimate moment shared between parents. For Mr. Benning, who stood by her side supporting her, that text became the seed of doubt that he struggled with for the next 2 years. Yet, despite the upheaval caused by that message and the emotional shock it brought into the delivery room, Ms. Bodine continued to affirm that Mr. Benning was the true father, and she demonstrated that belief by allowing him to sign the birth certificate. In doing so, she gave him not only legal recognition as the father but also the emotional validation he wanted so deeply, especially considering his lifelong dream of raising a daughter. Her decision to let him sign the certificate suggested that, in her mind, any outside claims were irrelevant or untrue, even though her past actions had created the very situation that allowed those doubts to surface. This complex combination of infidelity, reassurance, external interference, and emotional vulnerability set the stage for the painful questions that eventually led them to the courtroom. Ms. Bodine explains that after the chaos surrounding Robin's birth and the disruptive text message from the other man claiming paternity, she took steps on her own to settle the uncertainty. She says she arranged for that man to undergo a DNA test, wanting to prove that his claims were not valid and that Mr. Benning was, in fact, the biological father. According to her, the test results showed a 0% probability of paternity, meaning that the man who made such a bold claim in the hospital could not possibly be Robin's father. She presented these results to the court as part of her evidence, hoping they would remove at least one layer of doubt from this situation and reaffirm the credibility of her insistence that Mr. Benning is the biological father. In her mind, this test result serves as clear support for her position and should reassure Mr. Benning that the doubts he has been living with are unnecessary. She uses the result to argue that although she did cheat, and although there may have been some confusion or conflict with other men, the biology itself points back to Mr. Benning. She believes this eliminates the main alternative possibility and strengthens her claim that both children belong to him. However, despite her confidence in these results, the emotional impact on Mr. Benning cannot be dismissed. He points out that her cheating was not limited to a single person, so ruling out one man does not automatically guarantee that there were no others who might also be potential fathers. While she presents the negative test as solid proof, he sees it as only one piece of a much larger and more complicated picture. Her reliance on this single test highlights how she tries to use scientific evidence to assert certainty, while he remains afraid that the truth may be much more fragmented and painful than she is willing to admit, leaving the situation far from resolved in his eyes. Even though the DNA results conclusively ruled out the man who sent the shocking text during Robin's birth, Mr. Benning finds no real comfort in that outcome because, to him, the situation is far more layered than a single positive or negative test. He points out that the issue was never just about one man or one moment of infidelity. The core of his concern lies in the fact that Ms. Bodine admitted to cheating with more than one person, which means that eliminating one potential father does not eliminate all possibilities. From his perspective, the test simply narrows the field, not the truth. For over 2 years, he has lived with a constant undercurrent of doubt fueled by messages, rumors, and hurtful words tossed around during arguments, words that implied he was not the father. These comments were not isolated, they came up repeatedly, and each time they chipped away at his sense of certainty. So when Ms. Bodine presents the DNA results as proof that he is the father, he struggles to accept it because the evidence doesn't account for the full scope of her actions. To him, the test functions like a bandage placed over a much deeper wound. It covers one small area, but the underlying injury remains untreated. His fear isn't based on a single accusation but on a pattern of betrayal, mixed signals, and emotional manipulation that has unfolded over months. He worries that if she was unfaithful with one person, she could have been unfaithful with others she never mentioned. This is why he feels he cannot rely solely on the test she provides. In his eyes, true reassurance can only come through definitive paternity testing for each child individually. Until he receives that level of certainty, the doubt continues to sit heavily in his heart, affecting the way he sees himself, his children, and the future he once imagined with unwavering confidence. The moment the court reads the DNA results for Robin, the atmosphere shifts sharply, as everyone present braces themselves for the truth that has been hanging over the case from the very beginning. Benning sits tense and focused, gripping the podium with the kind of anticipation that comes from months, if not years, of emotional strain, doubt, and unresolved resentment. For him, this moment represents the end of a painful chapter filled with confusion, accusations, and an uncertainty that has shaped the way he views both the past and the future. As Judge Lake announces that Benning is not Robin's biological father, the weight of the revelation hits each person differently, sending an emotional ripple through the courtroom. Benning's face reflects both relief and heartbreak, a complicated blend of feelings that arises when a long-held fear becomes reality. On one hand, he no longer bears the burden of responsibility for a child he doubted was biologically his. On the other hand, he must now confront the emotional consequences of stepping away and reshaping his relationship with a child he thought might have been his. Ms. Bodine is visibly shaken, struggling to process the results that directly contradict everything she insisted throughout the hearing. Her expression reveals a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and fear of what this truth means for her family dynamic, her credibility, and the stability of her child's life. The revelation not only exposes the layers of infidelity, confusion, and deception that led them to court but also forces each person to face the consequences of past choices and broken trust. The judge, maintaining composure, encourages them to focus on Robin's future, recognizing that although the truth may bring closure, it also opens the door to difficult decisions and emotional healing that will unfold far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Despite the verdict confirming he is not Robin's biological father, Benning makes it clear that the truth does not simply wipe away the 2 years he spent loving, caring for, and bonding with her. He speaks with a mix of sadness and sincerity, explaining that those shared moments, from late-night feedings to laughter and milestones, cannot be erased by a single sheet of paper. For him, the emotional connection he built with Robin was real and meaningful, and even though biology says otherwise, the heart does not detach as quickly or as neatly as the DNA results suggest. His voice carries a quiet pain as he reflects on how the bond he formed now feels fragile, threatened not only by the truth but by the uncertainty of what the future holds for both of them. At the same time, the revelation ignites a deeper and more distressing concern within him, one that he tries to express carefully but with undeniable urgency. If Robin is not his, he wonders aloud, then what about Jermaine Jr., the child he still believes might be his? The doubt creeps in stronger than before, fueled by the knowledge that Ms. Bodine was unfaithful during the period in question and by his fear that the deception may run deeper than he initially believed. He finds himself questioning every timeline, every assurance she gave, and every piece of trust he held on to while hoping this situation would make sense. The emotional blow of losing one child biologically intensifies his anxiety that he might lose another, leaving him feeling unsteady and uncertain about his role as a father. His concerns reflect not just suspicion but genuine heartbreak, the fear of having his identity as a parent stripped away twice, and the devastating possibility that everything he believed about his family might unravel all at once. In the midst of the court proceedings, additional layers of tension and emotional complexity emerge as Benning recounts the ongoing harassment and doubts that continued even after Jermaine Jr.'s birth. He explains that he received text messages from Ms. Bodine, or at least believed them to be from her, explicitly questioning the paternity of his infant son. These messages did not arrive in isolation but came as part of a pattern that compounded his anxiety and reinforced the seeds of doubt that had already been planted during Robin's birth. Each notification, each line of text suggesting that he might not be the father, hit him like a small but persistent blow, gnawing at his sense of certainty and stirring up a mix of anger, hurt, and helplessness. The emotional impact of these messages is intensified by the fact that he had been present at Jermaine Jr.'s birth, having signed the birth certificate and emotionally committed himself to the role of a father from the very beginning. From his perspective, these texts feel like a betrayal, a challenge to everything he had sacrificed and everything he had hoped to build with the child. When confronted, Ms. Bodine admits to sending one of these texts during a heated argument, explaining that it was motivated by spite rather than fact. She portrays it as a reactionary act, the result of an emotionally charged conflict rather than a genuine question of paternity, yet to Benning, the distinction is hard to reconcile. The knowledge that these messages were sent intentionally to provoke, wound, or manipulate him deepens his mistrust and highlights the volatile nature of their relationship. The combination of historical infidelity, ongoing doubt, and emotionally charged communication creates a persistent state of uncertainty, leaving him unable to fully trust either the circumstances or the assurances he receives, ultimately making the need for a definitive DNA test not just a legal requirement but an emotional imperative that weighs heavily on him each day. The courtroom falls silent as the moment arrives to reveal the DNA results for Jermaine Jr., the 6-month-old son whom Benning has cared for since birth and for whom he has held a mix of hope, love, and lingering doubt. Throughout the proceedings, he has expressed a deep emotional investment in Jermaine Jr., describing the bond he has formed through late nights, diaper changes, playtime, and the countless small but meaningful moments that define fatherhood. For him, the child represents not only a continuation of his dream of having children but also an opportunity to create a family and leave a lasting imprint of love and care. As the judge opens the envelope and announces the results, the words, "not the biological father," hit like a physical blow, cutting through the years of attachment and effort that Benning has poured into raising the child. The news is shocking not just to him but also to Ms. Bodine, who faces the reality that neither of the children she has presented in court is biologically Benning's, forcing her to confront the consequences of past choices and the uncertainty of paternity in both cases. For Benning, the ruling confirms the worst fears he had been trying to suppress, validating the doubts that have haunted him while also crystallizing a sense of loss that goes beyond biology. It is not just a legal decision. It is a profound emotional turning point, a moment where love, responsibility, and expectation collide with the stark reality of genetic truth. The court's ruling brings clarity in the technical sense, ending any ambiguity about paternity, yet it leaves open the question of how to navigate the complex emotional landscape that remains. Benning must now reconcile the undeniable connection he feels with Jermaine Jr. with the knowledge that biology does not support it, highlighting the intricate and often painful distinction between being a parent by love and by blood, and setting the stage for the difficult journey of acceptance and adaptation that lies ahead. The final ruling confirms that Benning is not the biological father of either Robin or Jermaine Jr., bringing an official and definitive conclusion to the months of uncertainty, doubt, and emotional strain that have defined the case. For Benning, the news is a devastating confirmation of what he had feared, yet it also provides clarity in a situation that has been clouded by betrayal, conflicting messages, and lingering suspicions. Despite the biological conclusion, the emotional bond he has formed with the children remains undeniable, highlighting the complex intersection between genetics and the lived reality of parenthood. The judge acknowledges not only the legal implications of the ruling but also the profound emotional struggle experienced by both parties, particularly Benning, whose hopes, dreams, and personal sense of family have been deeply impacted by the revelation. She underscores that while the DNA results provide certainty about paternity, they do not erase the relationships, responsibilities, or attachments that have developed over the years. The judge emphasizes the critical need for both adults to rise above past conflicts, miscommunication, and emotional impulses to prioritize the well-being of the children, reminding them that their focus must shift from personal grievances to creating a safe and stable environment. This involves fostering trust, consistency, and emotional security, which are essential for Robin and Jermaine Jr. to thrive despite the upheaval caused by the paternity revelations. By urging the adults to work together, the judge highlights that parenting is not defined solely by biology but also by commitment, care, and the ability to provide love and protection. The ruling serves as both a legal conclusion and a call to responsibility, encouraging the adults to navigate the challenging aftermath with maturity, empathy, and a focus on the children's long-term emotional and developmental needs, acknowledging that the path forward requires careful attention, cooperation, and dedication to their welfare. Subscribe to Paternity Truth right now.